thank you all for being with us today. Thanks for joining us. My name is Lauren Williams. I'm Adult and Community Services Manager for the Columbia Public Library. Just want to welcome you to today's Lunch and Learn, co-hosted by the library and the League of Women Voters of Columbia Boone County. Our topic is Columbia's African American Heritage Trail, and our speaker is Sharp End Heritage Committee co-chair Barbra Horrell. A couple of Zoom housekeeping items before we get started. If you hover over your Zoom window with your mouse, you should see the chat icon at the bottom of the screen. Or if you're on an iPad, you have to tap the middle of the screen or tap somewhere on the screen and a menu should drop down and you'll see the more menu and you can select chat. So if you have a question for today's presenter, please use that chat function. We're also recording this presentation, so it will be available in the next day or two on the League of Women Voters YouTube channel and the library's YouTube channel for future viewing. And now I'd like to introduce today's moderator, Marilyn McLeod, President of the League of Women Voters of Columbia Boone County.
Good afternoon, and thank you all for joining us. I think we have a really large number of participants, which is wonderful. Thank you to Lauren Williams for organizing this with us and for the library co-sponsoring these Lunch and Learn events each month. We are just delighted to work together again on these types of programs. Before we introduce our speaker, I just want to mention, just in case I forget at the end, that our December Lunch and Learn will be December 8th at noon, same place on Zoom, and the topic will be the Americans with Disabilities Act, as it is the 30th anniversary year of that law in effect. So we will have several speakers on the topic and hope you will join us then. As Lauren said, today's program is about Columbia's African American Heritage Trail. We are so pleased to share with you the work of the Sharp End Heritage Committee and the Columbia Parks and Recreation and how they have marked designated spots in the African American Heritage Trail in our community. This is such an important part of Columbia's history, and what a wonderful idea to mark this heritage as this organization has done. Now I'm delighted to introduce Barbra Horrell, who is co-chair of the Sharp End Heritage Committee, who will share the history and story of this project to preserve the landmarks and locations that are a part of Columbia's African American history. Thank you, Barbra, for sharing the story today. We are just delighted to have you as our speaker.
Thank you. And thanks to everyone for coming to further understand the history of the Black community of Columbia. You're going to have a map shown a little bit later that you will be able to take with you when you go to visit the sites in town. They're all visibly marked. Let me first say that as a proud Black native Columbian, I'm excited because we lived in segregated Columbia for so long that now that we're together, everybody's finding out what everybody else is about. So today we're going to talk about the African American Heritage Trail. I've lived it. I'm an old lady, but I've lived it. So I can tell you everything. I know where the creeps and cracks are in the Black community. So we're going to share with you the good stuff and let you know where to go when you want to do it. You can pull up the map now. Okay, this map, I'm going to tell you different places, and as you go with me on the map, I will point them out to you. First, there are a lot of people that you are learning about now and are finding out where they are and where they were and what they did in the Black community. We knew this, and so we're happy to share this with the rest of the Columbia community. Namely, Mr. Kirkland. Mr. Kirkland was a gardener. If you look at your map up at your upper left-hand corner, it says Kirkland's home. Mr. Kirkland was a farmer. He was born a slave. He's done all of this irrigating, and he learned through the French how to irrigate and grow crops. And he was still growing crops in October, November that we traditionally cut out in the summer. So Mr. Kirkland's important to us. They have just put and many of you may be a part of that, they finally gave him a tombstone. He's been in Columbia Cemetery for 80 years, he and his family, and no one had ever put a tombstone there. The next one is Boone, the Blind Boone home. And if you come on down Broadway, all the way down to, come to Broadway, come straight down, there you come on, keep up, there you go. Blind Boone home and the Second Baptist Church. Those two are significant to each other. Blind Boone, as you know, was a musical genius, blind from birth, and has always been very important to us. All of us were so excited when we were able to finally get his home restored. If you haven't visited the home, I invite you to give me a call, give any of us a call, and we would love to show you the house. It's beautiful, and a lot of you have donated artifacts to the house, and we can't thank you enough, but you do have to see the house to understand the 1927 vineyard that's there. The Second Baptist Church was where he helped to pay off, he and his manager helped to pay that off, John Lang Jr. They helped to pay off that property. And so there we are. One of the questions that's popped up, he says, I heard Boone had his eyes removed. Boone was born sighted, but he had a fever. And the only way they could cure his fever was to take his eyes. So that's the reason we call he's really been blind from an infant birth. Thank you, Phil. And so that's another reason that he is so outstanding, because he could hear something and he could play it back to you. He was also instrumental in giving money to Christian College in exchange for their classical pianists teaching him classical music. So there's a link also with Blind Boone in that area. There's a link for John Lang Sr., who's the school over on, what is that street? Right off of College Avenue. The Lang School was named after John Lang Sr. Many didn't know that, but that's where that school got its original name. As I said, he was eulogized at Second Baptist Church. His funeral was held there, and his family has many ties because his mother is one of the forefront missionaries that we had at the church. So please come down and see that. Then we have, of course, the wonderful Annie Fisher, who won the World's Fair with her beaten biscuits. And we have a marker for her. And she was the richest lady in Columbia. She had money and properties and things that the university borrowed some of her dinnerware and her fineries when they had opportunities at the university for many years. She lived at the corner of Park and 6th Street. So if you get a chance there's a marker there for her. It's Annie Fisher. And Annie Fisher's marker, Lauren, is further, come on up. Yep, it's number 16. Okay, you got it. And then, of course, we had Black physicians, because all of us that were born before 1951 were born at home. So we all understood that Black physicians were very important to all of us, including our dentists. And I had a question about Annie Fisher. Annie Fisher's money came from the money she made with her beaten biscuits and all of her other she had housing. She owned property all over Columbia, all the way. She owned all the way out to the old Highway Theater, drive-in theater south of town. She owned the house on 63 North, the big White House. Those properties were hers at one time. She had one child. She and her husband divorced, and she had one child, and nobody's ever found where the child went off to college, and there is no recollection of what happened to Annie Fisher's daughter. Ironically, Annie Fisher's grave, I discovered when we were putting together the graves that were not marked. I found Annie Fisher's grave is in Memorial Cemetery, and guess what? She's got a little tin marker that says Annie Fisher. So since I'm her adopted daughter now, I go out and I make certain at every occasion we remember Annie Fisher. So she's very important to us. She had beautiful home. Her home was one of the most elegant in town. It was a 3-story brick 16-room home there on the corner where her marker is. Our doctors, the ones that we have honored in this program, is Dr. Wiggins and Dr. Reynolds, and their marker is at Providence and Ash. Can you find that? Come on down. It's called the Dobie Building. It's number 10. To your left, yep, you got it. And the Dobies are, Dr. Dobie was an important man that he came from the East Coast and settled here with his 2 daughters. His wife had passed, and he settled here in Columbia. And one of his daughters, any of you that might have known Ruth Wiggins, who was a school teacher at Douglas, she was one of his daughters. He had 2 daughters. The house is no longer there, and it's that entire corner where we have Dobie Flats. He had apartments that started at Providence, or 3rd Street as we knew it then, went all the way back to 1st Street, going west on Ash. There was apartment buildings there between Ash and Park, all the way back to 1st Street was apartment complexes that he had. And that was close to what we would call the projects now, but they were individual apartments in one big building. And after that, Miss Wiggins married Dr. Wiggins, Dr. Roland Wiggins, who was a Meharry graduate, a French scholar, went to Europe and learned strategic medicine, came home, and one of his students, Dr. Reynolds, and they started a practice there in the home. The home was demolished. Mrs. Wiggins' home has been moved, and it's on the corner of Garth and Pendleton. It's a white house there on the corner, and her house was moved from Ash up to the site where it is now. And that corner also was is the McQuitty Barber Shop. And the McQuittys are a family that started with a great-grandfather who was a Black builder here in town. And his properties were all on Garth and Worley. And the little shotgun house that used to sit there on the corner, we've moved it to the Boone County Historical Society. And we're housing that as Black History of Columbia, and it's a home there. We're in the process of furnishing that property, and hopefully it'll be shown when the spring housing is shown out at the Heritage Place. The one that's interesting and really interesting, go back up, Lauren, to up that same hill, go back up north, go on up to the Harvey House right there. Harvey House is important, and it's in a block of where the where the swimming pool and the housing authority is now. But that used to be an area that most active, because we had a grocery store there, we had a restaurant there, and the Harvey House was the main feature there. Harvey House was the only place Black travelers could stay. It was listed in the Green Book, which at one time was the only way Blacks could stay in. We couldn't stay in hotels. So the Harvey House was very important to us when they got to this part of the country. Traveling between Kansas City and St. Louis or across country, a lot of major entertainers stayed there. And I'm happy to say I actually lived in the Harvey House because my great uncle, Harvey, owned the house, and he and his daughter Lavinia ran the house. But we lived there because my parents had an apartment on the 2nd level. They had family on the second level. Third level was for entertainers. And the first level, of course, was where the restaurant and the dining hall was. So that's very important. And I miss it because there was a huge house. It was a huge 3-story house. And it was always entertainment, big cars, big Cadillacs, big limousines coming and going back in the day. So we're as a Black community, are very proud to have been included in that particular Green Book of Travelers. We'll move on. Let me tell you about Douglas School. Douglas School was from 1900 to 1959, and it was the one and only Black school after the Cummings Academy. Cummings Academy number 11, that was the first colored school in Columbia. And it was named the Cummings Academy. It went from Cummings Academy to Excelsior Academy. They moved it 1 block north and it became Douglas School. But Cummings Academy is being marked also as the starting of school for Negroes in Columbia. Douglas School, after it was moved to that site, became the only school for Blacks in Columbia until 59, when we successfully integrated the school system. I was the last class at Douglas, and I really am proud to say I was the last class, but I have 4 generations of family that graduated from Douglas too. So it's now called Frederick Douglass, but back in the day, and what's on the sign says Fred Douglass, because we weren't called by proper names at that time. Sharpen. Let me tell you about Sharpen. Sharpen got this all started. 1900 to 1960, Sharpen was the only place that Black businesses could have. We owned both sides of the street of Walnut from 5th to 6th Street. So Blacks were very important there because all of their businesses, from restaurants, nightclubs, everything that food, any kind of food service, bowling alleys, everything was up there. Pool hall, everything that was in Black entertainment was on that particular block on both sides of the street. And the post office is now on the side where most of the restaurants were. Sharpen was a place that everybody could go, but you had to be 18 or older. If you were under 18, we just looked over there. We never could go up there. You crossed that street and somebody, including some of the Black policemen, would say, "Why are you up here? You're on the wrong side of this side of the street. So get back on the other side and go where you're going." So I never got to see Sharpen for myself, except the corner where my aunt had a restaurant, and we'd go there and get our sandwiches and get back out on our side of the road there and keep moving. And we stood many a time on the trip where the Tribune is right now and kind of looked over there to see what was going on. Anytime you have any questions, please ask me. We had a couple of major Black businesses that was there. The Tiger Lounge and restaurant, and at night it became a nightclub. So at 6 o'clock, till 6 o'clock to about 9 o'clock, we had movies, and then it became a nightclub. So the kids we never got to do that much either, because parents didn't let you out much after dark until you were at least 18 in our community. Up the street was go back up to Noble's Court, Noble's Exchange number 12. Mr. Noble was the only paper dealer and trash dealer in town. He had a big paper company and lumber company there, right across from the school. And Mr. Coleman was across the street on the other side on Park Avenue. And he had iron and scrap place, and he owned the Tiger Lounge and the Tiger Theater that I just talked to you about. That was number 18. We have always had beautiful Black churches, and if you've never been in any of the Black churches, I want you to take a time and come visit us, especially where I am at Second Baptist, we'd love to see any of you, but all the Black churches, I think, would give you another experience and another culture of gospel that we have. And we're open. We want people to join us like we want to join you in your religious ceremonies. One of the restaurants that's most famous business was Monty's, and that's number 17. Monty's. He was a barbecue king. Everybody, black, white, green, whatever color, showed up in Monty's. Mr. Monty always was dressed for the occasion. He had the big chef hat and the apron and everything, and you could smell Monty's barbecue from Providence to Broadway. He was a very famous man. He was the barbecue king. And on his sharing his sign is with him is the Norris Stewart Nursery. Norris Stewart Nursery started out as the Dolly House. And as the kid, I went to the Dolly House Nursery School, and it was on the corner of right across from the Armory, right there on Ash and 6th Street, going south. Okay, go up 17. There you go. They're sharing a sign. We have limited spaces that we can put that's public property here in Columbia. So that's the reason a lot of the markers are two-faced and have two different scripts on them. So please get out with your map and go read the scripts that are on each of those markers. Now the original churches are there, and I was just kind of skipped and went to that, but there's the original St. Luke Church, number 18, where it says Tiger Theater. It's where the post office is. It was right there on the corner. It was a brick church, a mason stone brick church. And when they tore that down with urban renewal, some of those bricks, so they said, were given to other churches, other white churches here in town that have stone fixtures, foundations. We have the St. Paul Church and the 5th Street Christian Church on number 15. Those are on 5th Street. So if you come down 5th Street, you get a number of churches right in a row. They're all different denominations, but they're all up, their doors are still open, and most of them are at least 155 years old. Now let me tell you about a cool place that everybody went to that was a shared property in Columbia, and that's number 22. That's the McKinley Building. And the McKinney Building was a Black restaurant cafeteria in the bottom, and upstairs was a dance hall, was a ballroom. And that ballroom on Friday nights, Blacks had it, and on Saturday night, it became a white functioning building. So they shared that particular corner, and that building is now, I think it's for sale, but it's right next to the Baptist church. And the district has taken that on as one of their marker went into that property because it is important to the city. It's in the district. Any questions so far, or I'll keep going? Questions? Anyone?
There is a question about whether there are photographs of the original buildings.
We have some, but Black History did not provide a lot of storage places for pictures. People might have had them in their homes. They might have had old photos, but they didn't share them because a lot of them didn't have the means to for cameras and materials. But they were the pictures that we have shared, and some of the markers do have pictures on them that we were able to get. Another area that's important to us is the McAllister number 7. Go up, there you go. McAllister Truby Market. Mrs. Truby was a white female who owned the grocery store, but she was one of the few that were still in the Black neighborhood. So all of us knew Miss Truby, and Miss Truby knew all of us. we would walk to Miss Truby's to get our groceries, or to 3rd Street Market if you live closer to Providence. So, but Truby's is up on Garth Avenue. And right across from her marker, and including in her marker, is Dr. McAllister. Dr. McAllister was the only Black dentist we've ever had. And he was a true Renaissance. He would see you on Sunday morning and he'd ask us, did we brush our teeth? How many times do we brush? And you're sitting in church and you're thinking, why is he messing with me today? Because it's not a day I'm in church. But he would stop you anywhere. In the evening, he would be sitting on his porch and he would say to us, don't forget to brush your teeth because you're going to be coming to see me next month and I'm going to pull them all. So what can we say? That's Dr. McAllister. I just saw a question come up, something about a book. Somebody's asking about Rudy's book. Question?
I just want to know if there is one. So that's been posted in, Lauren has posted that in the chat.
Okay.
Called Columbia's Historic Sharp End by Rudy Keller.
Yeah, he was very instrumental in helping us to write the original book when we dedicated the Sharp End program. Very knowledgeable young man down to, he was at, I think he still is at the Tribune. Rudy's a great guy. If you see him, tell him, Barbara said he's still a great guy because he worked with us tremendously to get the Sharp End materials pulled together. We had teachers at Douglas that were very dedicated to us getting in and getting out 12 years later. And one of the people that has been acknowledged is number 13, Miss Beulah Ralph. And Beulah they have honestly named a school after Beulah, and they've named a school after the Battles. They both taught at Douglas. Miss Battle was my 3rd grade teacher, and Mr. Battle was our civics teacher. But, oh, okay, somebody says Keller has left the Tribune. Mm-hmm. But if you see him, or if you get any of his materials, or the Sharp End book that we put out when we had the dedication. A lot of people don't have them yet, but believe it or not, I still have a couple of copies in my car, and I'll give them to Lauren and she can share them, or Marilyn can share them with anybody that wants to share that material. They were great books, and everybody in Columbia that received a Tribune paper got that book. Many didn't keep them, but we kept all of ours, okay?
Yeah.
So, but Beulah now has a school named after her, an elementary school. Beulah had been with the school system some 50 plus years. And then when they integrated, she went and started the communications linkage for the Columbia Public Schools. So it's a lot of history for us. And I'd love to just sit down and tell you about all of it individually. But, you know, it's the pride that we have taken in ourselves, and that our children know that things did happen on our side of town. There's a group that's not been mentioned much, and that's the Cemetery Hill group and the Columbia Cemetery. There are markers there. The Cemetery Hill crowd was a group of people who lived in that area until urban renewal, and they didn't have the best of homes in that area, but they were there. And many of those families, when the Cemetery Hill was closed down, they moved into town, and a lot of them ended up, like most of us, out of our homes because urban renewal took a lot of property. If you're not familiar with urban renewal, take a look at urban renewal. Urban renewal crossed out many of the Black homes and communities. And it's sad because there were beautiful homes that were torn down, quote, for passage of urban renewal. So a lot of older families don't like the word urban renewal, including my family and me. But those families have moved on, and there is a marker in the Office Depot parking lot that shows you where the Cemetery Hill apartments were. And then if you go up a little further, there is the Columbia Cemetery. And I know many of you probably know about Columbia Cemetery because you probably have used it, because a lot of families, older families on the white side, use that. But up in there, there is Black families listed. Try walking through that cemetery at 7 o'clock in the morning on a cold morning with a flashlight. We did it because we were trying to find Blind Boone to make sure he had a marker, and all of the ones that we find. And also up in that area is the guy that was lynched, and his marker is there. And there is a marker also at the bridge where he was tossed over at Stewart Road. And so those kinds of things are all listed in that particular map. And in just following the map, just if you got a walking day, just get out and walk and see and read the markers that are there representing what we already knew in our part of town, and now we're sharing with the rest of Columbia. Because a lot of folks would think of us as, oh, well, where did that happen and where did that happen? Some of us lived it, and some of us are still living it. The last marker is the trailhead marker that's down at Flat Branch. And when we have the dedication, put it on your calendars, December the 3rd, we're going to dedicate all of this trailhead and all of this this project to the city in lieu of waiting until the 2000 celebration. We want you to be included and enjoy this the whole time, because we've enjoyed putting it together. Okay, questions? I could talk on, but I don't want to cut anyone out of having a question.
I don't see any, they've been answered. The name of the gentleman who was lynched is James Scott.
James Scott, yes. His marker is right next to Kirkland's. They just dedicated the Kirkland one. And if you look to the left of Kirkland's marker, there is the James Scott marker. And if any of you were involved in the James Scott program, when we brought his the young lady that was supposedly raped, her family came to Columbia, her grandchildren, and they had no idea that any of this had happened. But they came, and we had a big program and a dedication, and this entire city turned out, and we had a full celebration from Second Baptist Church to the cemetery and marked that. So if you weren't here, or if you missed it, I'm sorry. It was a beautiful occasion. And guess what? He was not the rapist. His papers have been cleared that his murder was a homicide. Okay? The person that did that particular rape got away with it, and had already gotten away with raping 2 other people in town, and was in the jail at the same time.
Wow.
So history does good things and history does bad, but we're proud of Columbia. I'm very proud to say I was born and raised right on the corner of Worley and Garth. My house still stands there.
Is that the purple house?
No, come down Worley going toward Providence, and they've put 2 houses up there, but the little white house that somebody has taken over and made a mockery of, because we used to have, my grandparents had a koi pond, and I remember falling in that once, and when I went by there once to see what was going on at the house, they've covered it over, and they've got a big trailer sitting over the koi pond.
Oh, wow.
So Columbia changes, and people don't recognize and keep things like we used to have them, because we didn't have much, but we did have good stuff, as other families did. Somebody asked, did Black business move? Oh, Black businesses after Sharpin, they try to move some of them down to where the Tribune is on Ash, and that strip lasted about 8-10 years, and it was too much. It was too many people crowded into too small of a space, trying to do too much business. So it went away, and the Tribune bought that whole area.
Wow.
Other questions?
Yeah, we have a few. The dedication on December 3rd. Can you tell us the time and location?
The location is going to be Flat Branch at the trail marker, at the spearhead marker. We're going to start there. And it's going to not be a great big celebration. We're going to do it with distances, but come spring and soon as we get the virus out, we're going to have a holy celebration of marching through the city. We have been training children to be docents for the city. So we will start the tours. And if you want a tour, a guided tour, those kids are being trained. And also the school system now has included in their curriculum, there's not much Black history taught in Columbia schools. So my program is being instrumental in starting every 7th grader in Columbia Public Schools are going to have this trail as a part of their social studies program. And that's really good that we are bringing all kids, because all kids are together. Diversity in this city is finally getting itself together. Right. And I'm proud.
Yeah, me too.
Hi, Wynn.
Let's see, some other questions. Did James Scott have any descendants that we know of in Columbia?
James Scott's children, he had children, and they just all disappeared. They got out of Columbia.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Okay. He had an aunt that lived right next to the swimming pool. He had an aunt named Eliza Scott. And if you could have, I remember Miss Eliza, she was a little bitty lady, and he was his kind of people, because he was a small man, very small man with a little mustache, quiet little man, they said. I didn't know him personally, but they said he was a quiet little man. And his cousin Liza used to tell us kids stories, because she babysitted most of us when we got out of school. We'd walk to her house by the swimming pool and stay there until our parents picked us up. I saw a couple of questions that I could answer, maybe.
Okay, sure, go ahead.
Douglas was always a school for African Americans. Yes, it was. We came in you went in the north door and you graduated out the south door 12 years later. But we had everything every other school had. We had band, we had chorus, we had music, we had football, we had all the sports, girls and boys sports, everything every school had. Douglas had. And if you're native Columbian, you might have remember when Douglas came down Broadway at homecoming, everybody was excited. Okay. I moved it. It was my telephone.
Okay. We're having a big storm over here on my side of town. In case the power goes.
Okay, we're having a storm out at my side too. I'm out here by the forum, and we got a little storm brewing up too.
Yeah, it's pretty heavy. Someone's asked about a copy of the map, and Lauren has shared that link, so you can go get that.
Yeah, you can print it. She said you can print it
out. Question, is Douglas School where Cummings Academy used to be?
No, Cummings Academy was the original school right there at where the Enterprise car rental is, right there on Providence and Ash.
Right.
And if you go north 1 block, that's where the Douglas School is now.
Okay. And let's see. Douglas the question is whether it's always a school for African Americans. We've answered that. Yes. How did the Sharp End get its name?
Sharp End has 2 names. The word Sharp End, as we knew it, was 1 word. Okay. Mm-hmm. Back in the day, the people, the founders and people that older than me that have gone on called it Sharp End. One word. And it indicated a row of housing that was on top of the buildings, and how families got to them. They made a sharp end into between the buildings and went up to their apartments, because they couldn't enter from 5th Street. From Walnut, and that's where the original Sharp End is. That was the name of the road that was between the houses where they went to their apartments behind the buildings. But everybody since then has called Sharp End the building right here in town, the middle of the streets. Mm-hmm. But it's 2 words now, Sharp End. Mm-hmm. And one of the philosophies is that you had to be dressed and totally attuned to go there. You didn't go in your sloppy clothes. When you went to the restaurants and when you went to the nightclubs, you were sharp. So that came a sharp in.
Yeah,
One of our
what I
guys,
thought was. Mhm.
one of our guys that went to the service came home and he said, we're known worldwide. And we asked him, what are you talking about? And he said he was in Europe someplace and he met some guys and they asked him where he was from. And he said, Columbia, Missouri. And said, the first guy said to him, is that sharp end still there? Can you imagine that? And it was in the 60s. All right.
Yeah.
So we were well known. And a lot of cities are now copying what we did. Jefferson City, Fayette, Mexico, and all of them are trying to bring back their Black communities. And so that's a good thing. It shows the diversity that are in the cities, that we all are one. Whether we want to acknowledge it or not, we are one. We just live in different parts of town. The last thing that I want to add is that we have 2 sites that we're still needing funding for, and each of the markers costs $2,500. And I'm not selling markers, but if you have money that you're throwing away in a pot, just send it our way. Sharp pen, the latest one is the Miles Manor, and Miles Manor is not in the local district that it was. Miles Manor is the stadium almost at Forum. And that's the only Black subdivision in town that is original subdivision that started after urban renewal, because we couldn't buy housing in town in 59 through 61 and 63. And so through one lady's desire to have places where Black people could have nice homes like we had, Miss Claire Miles and her group bought this subdivision out here. And I live in Miles Manor and I love it. So Miles Manor is the latest marker and it's being put down next week.
Great. Couple other questions if you have time for us.
Fine.
We're good. The Kansas City Monarchs and other Negro League baseball teams played local teams in Columbia. You know where those games took place?
Douglas School. That Douglas area between the swimming pool and the school building. It was the Columbia Falcons they played.
Okay. Now, when the proponents of urban renewal, when that project came up, what was the history on that in terms of the selection of that location? Since it sounds like there were nice homes and businesses.
Right. It was a federal mandate that they do land clearance. And for some reason, guess what? They chose that particular land clearance because Providence Road was 3rd Street at that time. And it was the thoroughfare into Columbia from the highway. So they wanted to clear out that area. We heard that hopefully they were clearing it out for business purposes. Mm-hmm. But it ended up, we still have homes and the projects and all of that were put in place. The ironic thing was that the people's homes that they took, they gave them a certain amount of money, not enough to buy another home. And so those people became project people, or they moved further out in the Columbia area, in the Ward 1 area, or some of them moved to the highway area where the car places are now. But it was never enough money that you could buy another home, mm-hmm. because there were no more homes in the area. And we all tried to buy other properties. Our family was turned down 3 times with properties. My husband and I got married in 61, and we tried to buy for 4 years. Our money just sat in the bank for 4 years because every time the realtor would take a deposit, he couldn't seem to find a house that nobody wanted to sell. And that's the reason we have Miles Manor. We have 30 families that were displaced. Mm-hmm. Wow. The original 30 families. Uh-huh.
Yeah. Wow. Let's see. I have a question. Where can donations be sent?
We are part of the Community Foundation. John Baker's over that group. And I can get you, Marilyn, that information, and you can share it next time, okay?
Okay.
All right.
They may have a website.
Mostly the groups, we don't take money directly, but mostly because we do through Ready, which is part of the city. But I think we one of the things that has helped us is that a lot of the business, and then you'll see on the bottom of all the markers who donated the markers. There have been families, there have been anonymous, there have been different businesses in town and banks that each bought a marker. And the markers are $2,500. They buy markers. And if someone calls the Sharpin and Ready office and says, I want to buy a marker, we've got a marker. We've got Douglas football field. Believe it or not, the guys walk from Douglas School all the way up to Mac Bain to practice and play football.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty good distance.
That was a big distance every day to practice, and then to play football, finish your football game and have to come all the way back down there. Walk. Most of them walked. Some of them did the school bus, would come back down there to dress and change clothes. If you were injured, the joke was throw them behind the locker, we'll get them later. But that was kind of the rule of thumb. So we're trying to get a marker for the original Douglas football field and stadium.
Okay. Great.
Okay.
But if people don't have $2,500 but just want to contribute, they can do that.
If they want to contribute, we do it through the community foundation that John Baker runs. I think it's called Community. I'll get you the full information. Okay.
Sure. Is that the same? You know, in December when they take donations for various local not-for-profit organizations, people can make donations. Is that the same?
That's the same one with John Baker.
Okay. So you would be listed on that.
Yeah, we have a site on that web, and people donate to that Sharpin, to the Sharpin group. Yeah, there it is. Somebody's good.
Yeah, it's librarians there, you know. Community Foundation of Central Missouri.
Okay.
Okay. I have a question in terms of the book that you talked about that Rudy Keller did. If there's a chance for republishing that, making those available, that would be a great.
Lauren would probably know more about that, because the Sharpin book that we put out was a paperback, like 20 pages that everybody was mailed. And when the Tribune sold, we went down and collected all we could from them, and I'm toting them around in the back of my car. And when I do presentations, I usually give them to the Rotaries and the groups that I work with. I can leave with you the ones that I have, and you can share with them. And we tried to get some more, but I think the Tribune, their warehouse said this is over, and they just got rid of them. Yeah,
I just wonder if it would be worth, publishing and selling them,
Oh yeah,
a certain number of copies.
It was free. It was free to everybody to the Tribune paper. Yeah, it was everybody got a book in the Tribune paper, and people just didn't keep them, but we did.
Thank goodness.
We have one at the reference desk.
Thank goodness I got a bunch of them in my trunk.
We have a question here, which is a heavy question. Let's see, what can the average white person in Columbia do to make amends to the Black community for the terrible things that have happened and are still happening?
We don't make amends, we move forward. We can't keep looking back. It's a sad thing that it happened, but that's history and that's life. And like anything else in life, we have to go forward. And go forward with the understanding that all of our cultures and all of our diversity helps us all to grow as a city. And that's, that's the way. And it's not Pollyanna, because Barbara, if you know me well, you know that I'm not a Pollyanna. I will get you straight to front of the line. As my godmother says, you have no political savvy. I spit it out like it is. And there is no way that we as a community of educated, bright, wonderful people, no matter how poor or how rich we are, that we all, we just have to make a conscious effort of being inclusive. And I do some lecturing, and I talk about growing up north of Broadway. And they said, why would you say that? I said, because I never crossed Broadway until I got a full scholarship to MU. I was the first Black kid in Columbia to get a full ride to MU, everything. And that was the last place I wanted to be, because I saw what my ancestors, and we couldn't even go to football games at MU. You had to sit on the hill, and all those people fed the students and fed the football players and everything else, but they couldn't go to a football game. We couldn't go downtown as kids and buy ice cream at the dairy. We had to stand outside and get ice cream at the dairy. And those things I remember, and I'm in my 70s, so I remember it. And I try not to tell the younger kids what they missed. It was a part of our culture and our growing up that we had to do better. And we're trying to show everybody to do better. Take what we learned and what we had and expand on it. And I'll get off my bench now. I will not preach anymore.
Well, I will share this last comment here. You need to write this all down.
I am. It's in the State Historical Society, and I have a time, because being my minors was history. My major, of course, was education, but I'm one of the few that will talk about it. A lot of Blacks still don't want to talk about it. And that's the committee, that the Sharping Committee of Locals. There was only 5 of us. Sion Williams being the oldest, he's 95. And he was, his kids grew up with me. And so we still talk about it. And a lot of the Blacks that we looked up to are gone. Okay.
Right.
So we do what we can when we can.
Well, we are so grateful, first, for your time here today and for this wonderful project. I think we'll all benefit from it. And I love that the students will, have firsthand knowledge, and that you'll have students leading the way. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you,
Barbara. This is wonderful.
All right. You all have a good weekend. Okay.
Yeah, you too. You take care.
Myself. I'm already on to the weekend. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. And thank you all for attending today's. Okay.